Hi, everyone. I'm Donna Carrick, host of Dead to Rights, the podcast, and Carrick Publishing publisher. I'm here today on behalf of the Mesdames of Mayhem to introduce you to Jane Petersen Burfield, who is the author of quite a number of short stories, including one titled Whispers, that is going to appear in the Spirit of 13 by the Mesdames of Mayhem, fall of 2022. Hi, Jane. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Donna. What a pleasure it is to hear you, to see you.
I know we're having a little bit of difficulty, and you can't see me today, but I can see you just fine. So hopefully everything will go okay without a hitch here. Tell us a little bit about Whispers. You've got a couple of characters. They are at an airport. Their names are Kate and Frank.
Yes, I wanted to explore what it would be like to discover you don't really know your husband. That there are things that have gone on in the past that are not quite right after a year of marriage. They got married during COVID, and although I very carefully never mentioned COVID because I knew it probably turns people off, but they're now going on a cruise. Theoretically as a honeymoon, but it turns out Frank has other expectations, and it's just exploring benevolent dysfunction, I guess, although it becomes less benevolent later on. They're all on their way to Fort Lauderdale. This was my way of coping with COVID. Here, I've mentioned it twice. I got to do a lot of exploration on cruising online so I could have a virtual cruise trip.
Well, for those who don't know Jane is quite the traveler. Jane loves to travel, and it does show up in many of your stories. Now, you've got a number of stories that either won or were runner-ups for awards. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the first one I wrote was for the Boney Pete contest in 2001. I didn't at the time. I didn't like short stories. I like a good meaty read. You know, one that just sucks you right in. And I had no expectations of ever writing a short story. And I had two friends, both of them wonderful writers. And I wanted to encourage them to write a short story so that they could enter the contest, win it, and get published, because the prize was that you got published somewhere. And so they wrote amazing stories, and I wrote one too, just because I said I would. And I was gobsmacked when my name was called and not theirs for as the winner. I was absolutely gobsmacked. I didn't even move towards the stage. I just sat there with my mouth open. I mean, it was amazing. The next person who won was Margaret Atwood, and she followed me to the podium.
So you were called to the same stage as Margaret Atwood, and that's got to be quite a thrill. What was the title of that story? Because I used to know it and I've forgotten.
It's Slow Death and Taxes. At the time, I was doing all of my family's taxes. I loved them. It was like a logic puzzle. And I would adjust this and adjust that and be very conservative and get them all done. And I thought, what a brilliant way to kill somebody is with taxes, you know, and somebody that really needs to be killed. I tend to have antagonists that really need to die. You know, they
Earl has to die. Remember that song, Earl Has to Die?
Yes.
I always have loved that song. I guess it's that little evil streak in me. I've always just loved that song, Earl's Gotta Die. I can't remember. I think it was the Dixie Chicks who sang that? I think it might have been the Dixie Chicks. I can't remember.
I know it was country, because my late husband, one of his favorite Christmas songs was Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer.
I've always loved that one too.
It was great. Yeah.
Now, you have had a story in every anthology for the Mesdames of Mayhem to date. This is going to be our 5th anthology. Let's run through them. In 13, what was the name of your story? Do you recall?
Oh, my Lord. Love it.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
I don't.
This is a contest, Jane. If you don't know the answer, say pass.
I have the anthology here. I could look it up fast.
Yeah,
Isn't this
excellent.
awful?
Isn't that
I'm so
great? That's
sorry. I should
terrific
have
that
been
you have it right
prepared.
there.
Triskaidekaphobia. I love that.
That's
That's too
right.
right.
The fear of the number 13,
Yes.
triskaidekaphobia. I remember that distinctly. That was a wonderful story. I don't want to
Thank
give
you.
too much away, but it was so clever.
I loved it. I love cats, and a cat sort of figures prominently in it. And again, the person who dies really deserved to die.
Yes.
Um, so it's kind of fun.
And
Anyway,
some of the other stories that have appeared in the Mesdames anthologies, you had one about There Be Dragons, I think was the title. That was
oh,
a
I love
beautiful
writing.
fantasy style story, wasn't it?
Yeah, the theme was that we had to write about an animal. An animal had to be integral to the story, to the crime. And you know, I've loved dragons all my life. I don't know why. Um, Actually, I do. My grandmother had the most amazing, tall cloisonne lamp that had dragons, literally in raised relief coming off it, with the whiskers coming out. Um, anyway, I wanted to use dragons because I thought it would be different than the cats and dogs
Mhm.
and you know, other animals people were using. So I
You had
love dragons.
that one was in 13 claws, and you're right. The theme was there had to be an animal that featured in the story, but it was a fantasy story as well, and it was just beautifully written. If anybody is not familiar with that one, it is called There Be Dragons, and it's in 13 claws.
And actually, it was a finalist for the Arthur Ellis
I remember that.
Award,
Yes, yes, because I was
which
at that awards gala. I was so pleased. Yeah.
I didn't go. I didn't think it had a chance of getting, you know, nominated.
Mhm. That
I
was the
was
year that
again.
Kathy's story, The Outlier won. Yes, yes.
Yes.
And I remember that your story was a runner-up. That's terrific. And then we also had one called 13 O'Clock. Do you recall what was in that one?
Vaguely.
I'm not going to press you because that I know
Isn't
that
that?
we can draw blanks. But I know that in the Carrick anthology, A Grave Diagnosis, you had a terrific story about a dentist. Well, what was that one called?
That was Requiem. I
Requiem.
love
Yes.
Mozart. I love
Yes.
Mozart, and I wanted to use Mozart's Requiem as a frame around
Mhm.
which the story is sort of written in episodes. And
Mhm.
I just love it.
That was another
Again, I
really
use.
good story. And you had somebody again who really deserved to die, but you brought in some gray areas there. There were a couple of characters, not the least of which was the protagonist, who were less than perfect.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really liked writing her. Well, I must admit, some of it's sort of autobiographical and as for inspiration, not really for
Mhm.
the truth, or I'd be in jail. Um, she she also grew up in a family home. My daughters are fourth generation in our family home in what used to be virtual country and is now pretty much the center of Toronto. I mean, when I was a little girl, one of the plazas was a pig farm. Anyway, so it was really fun, sort of writing about
Mhm.
things that I
Mhm.
remember doing, going down into the garden cubby, and
Here's what I see with
seeing.
many of your stories, and actually, we made a mistake. That one was in the Key of 13, Requiem.
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
It's
because in
music.
A Grave
Yeah.
Diagnosis, you had the Victory Garden, which is another brilliant story. I just love that one. But one of the things I've noticed about your stories, and it ties to what you said at the very beginning of this chat, is that you write your short stories like novels. You've got a character development, you've got a story development, you've got a pace that the reader can really get to know what's going on and who the players are. And it's really quite beautiful. It's quite elegant and it's quite unique in the short story world.
Thank you, Donna. That's high praise coming from you. Thank you. That's very, very
I
kind.
can't not
Um,
wait to see what's going on with Whispers. And I want our listeners to really anticipate Whispers coming out in the spirit of 13 in the fall by the Mesdames of Mayhem, because I think you've got somebody else who deserves to die, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, very much, very
Fair
much.
statement.
And it's, well, Whispers is interesting because I wanted to mine my own experience with, I guess the only way to put it is woo-woo. My my grandfather died when I was 5, almost 6, and I remember this is really kind of weird. My grandmother made me kiss him in his coffin
Ooh,
so I wouldn't dream about him. Uh, she was really a Victorian, and uh, it affected me for years. For
yeah.
years, I felt the house was haunted. I felt I was haunted, and so I sort of used that to sort of explore. Writing is very cathartic. You
Yes.
can use it to sort of get rid of a lot
Yes.
of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you can explore an awful lot of yourself, whether you admit it or not. It's very true. I certainly found that. Yeah. Now, what's in the future for Jane Petersen Burfield? Are you thinking that you may one day put your stories into a collection?
Oh, what an amazing idea.
Ah,
No, obviously I wasn't thinking that.
I was
But I will.
thinking that.
I will. I'm not ready to do it yet. It's sort of a mishmash. I don't know. Maybe I'll talk to you later about where I should be going and what I really want to do, Donna. I'm scared to death to try a novel,
Oh, you've
and I've
got to,
had a
Jane.
novel sitting on the back burner since I started really writing seriously back in 2001. And I would love to excavate it and follow it, but I don't know how. It's
Okay.
um, it would be fun to do. I'm also working on a couple of fun ideas for short stories. A place dear to my heart, Geneva Park, which is a YMCA family center and conference center up on Lake Couchiching, um, has just been bought. And our family up there, again, goes back, it's either 4 or 5 generations. My mother met my dad up there when she was
Okay.
attending, and he was a sneaky Dane. He was a gymnast. He was actually Olympic level gymnast. And he decided that this was a very pretty girl, and she had sort of a boyfriend drifting around. She was there with her father. And so he put this poor boyfriend through such a rigorous training session that the man had to go downstairs backwards for the rest of the weekend, which opened up the field. So he took my mother out on a date, and the rest is history.
Well,
It's
that's excellent. I love that story. I love that story. You'll have to explore that. But Jane, I've just got to say, and we'll talk offline, definitely. But you've got to explore the novel because it's in your style. It's in your way of expression. So I think once you really get rolling, you're going to find it very natural.
oh, thank you. I may need some hand holding. I'm
I
no
will be
wonderful
happy to give you some
producer.
hand holding.
I
I would
love
be
the
happy to. I'd
Mesdames,
love to
by
see
the way.
what you create with it. Anyways,
Thank
Jane, thanks so much for joining us here today. I appreciate it very much. It's always great talking to you, and I can't wait till I can see you in person.
The same here, Donna. I always love talking to you. And you do so much. I just wanted to say a big thank you for
Oh,
everything you do for
thanks.
writing
Thanks for saying
in
that. I have a
Canada.
lot of fun along the way, as you know. We all do.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, thank you very much.
dusty road, man alone. His vital signs go on hold, and I don't know what you've been told, but the years have turned my eyes gold. And I told you what you told me, we'd never be in the same boat for free. Yet it rides, let it rock.